Hey everyone, this is Rabbitearsblog and welcome to my top 10s list. So today's video is going to be about my top 10 scariest illustrations from the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series. And before I get into this, here are a few words from the channel. Hey guys, if you want to check out more content from this channel, then tune in every Sunday and Monday for new videos. And if you happen to see any videos posted up during the week, that means that there was a bit of movie and TV news that I wanted to talk about, so those will be considered special videos. And if you want to chat with me on social media or see when new videos are being released, then follow me through Twitter and Facebook. And also, please feel free to join the new Facebook group, Rabbitearsblog Reviews 2.0, where we talk about movies, TV shows, and video games with other fans of the genres. And now, we return to our regularly scheduled program. So I actually did this video way back in 2016 where I listed my top 10 scariest illustrations from the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series, but I wanted to give this video a makeover because I felt like my last video was kind of clunky in its presentation. Like, look for yourself. My top 10 scariest illustrations from Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark. And for those of you who don't know what Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark is, it was this children's book series that was written by Alvin Schwartz. Yeah, I had a lot of stuttering done in that video, so I decided to make this video more polished than the last video I did. So before I go into more detail with this video, I would like to tell you guys about the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series. So the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series was written by Alvin Schwartz, along with artwork by Stephen Gamel, and this series is basically a horror anthology of all the horror stories that were collected over the years. And the reason why this series was so well known is because it was often banned and challenged in a lot of libraries and schools. And the reason why it was often banned and challenged in a lot of libraries and schools was because of the scary content in this book. Now, I will admit that some of the content in this series was a bit too edgy for kids. Like, there's some stories that deal with murder and stuff like that, and I'm like, you sure you want to show this to kids? But anyway, the main reason why the series was banned and challenged a lot in schools and libraries was because of Stephen Gamel's terrifying artwork. It got so bad at one point that they decided to make new artwork for this series that was less scary, and let's just say that a lot of fans weren't happy with this. So of course this list is going to be based on my top 10 scariest illustrations from the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series that was based off of Stephen Gamel's artwork. Not the new artwork that's more child friendly, because we're not going to do that. But before I go into this list, I would like to give out a few warnings to you guys. First, there will be some massive spoilers in this video, as I will be talking about each story in this video. So if you have not read the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series, you might want to before you watch this video. Second, some of the artwork in this video will be pretty disturbing, so if you don't like disturbing artwork, you might want to skim over this video. And third, this list is based off of my personal opinion, so there might be some artworks in this video that you guys might not agree with, or there might be some artwork that's not featured in this video that you guys think I should have included. So let's get started. So The Bride is a story about a young woman who ends up getting married, and she ends up playing some games with her friends and family, and during that time she finds a trunk in the attic, and so she decides to go inside the trunk to hide. But then she accidentally gets knocked out when the trunk lid falls on top of her head, and because of this, nobody noticed that she was stuck in the trunk, so the bride ended up being stuck in the trunk for so many years. And years later, a maid finds the trunk, and when she opens the trunk, she finds the bride's dead body inside the trunk. The reason why the artwork from the bride was so disturbing to me was not because we see a decomposing corpse in the bride or wear, but because of the story itself. The fact that the bride herself gets trapped in the trunk for so many years without nobody breaking her out was really disturbing to me, because it's like you're in an enclosed space and you can't get out of that enclosed space, and you're worried if somebody is going to find you eventually, and it turns out that person is not able to find you. So that's what was so disturbing about this artwork, is the fact that it has that primal fear about being stuck in an enclosed space and not being able to break out of that enclosed space, as well as seeing the decomposing body of the bride herself. So No Thanks starts off with a man who's going out in the middle of the night, and he meets up with this scary looking man who asks him, "Hey, do you have this knife?" And the man is like, "No, I don't want to buy a knife for you." And that's basically the gist of the story. The reason why I chose this artwork was because of the way that the man himself looked. Like his eyes just look much larger than the other side of his eyes, and his head just looks so lopsided, and it looks so uncanny that I was really disturbed by this image. And the fact that the story is about this weird looking man coming to this person asking them for a knife was really disturbing, especially since you have no idea what this man is asking for and why this man is asking for a knife. There's not much to say about hoo-haws in terms of a story because it's just used as an introduction to the Scariest Stories to Tell in the Dark series, but man was this image really creepy. It shows the image of a man with a skeleton head, and the way its teeth looks was really unnatural and uncanny. Like, it has human teeth, but the way the human teeth look is that it looks so uncanny and it looks so out of place. And then there was his eyes, which looks like cracked little holes, which was really creepy to look at. So this artwork really stand out to me for just how unnatural this artwork was of a skeletal man. So the story of Bess starts off with a man being given a premonition that his favorite horse Bess will end up killing him, and the farmer's like, nah, my favorite horse is not going to kill me. But then the farmer starts getting suspicious about the fortune teller's warnings about his horse Bess killing him, so he decided to sell his horse Bess to somebody else. And it turns out that the other person who took in Bess told him that Bess had died. And so the farmer's like, well, that's a relief. That means my horse is not going to kill me. But then when the farmer ends up going to see Bess's bones, he ends up getting bitten by a rattlesnake that was inside Bess's bones, and he ends up dying from the wound. The story might sound simple enough, but it has one of the scariest illustrations in the book. The image of Bess as a skeleton just looks so unnatural in this image. Like, Bess's skeleton in this artwork looks like a winged demon creature instead of a regular skeleton of a horse. And that's what made this image so creepy to me. Because it's like, okay, am I reading a book about a horse who died? So why does the horse's skeleton look like a demon skeleton? And that's what made this image so scary. It's supposed to be a skeleton of a horse, but it doesn't look like that. And it looks so terrifying that I was like, oh god, this image is so creepy. This can't be a horse. This can't be Bess. So the red spot starts off with a spider crawling on a woman's face, and the next day the woman ends up having this red spot that forms on her face, and in the next few days the red spot ends up getting bigger and bigger until one day it suddenly pops and all these spiders start coming out of the woman's red spot. Now, the fact that all these spiders came out of this woman's boil was terrifying enough. So terrifying that it became one of the most iconic images from the series. Now, I have a confession to make. I may not be scared of spiders, but I am terrified of cockroaches. So when I saw this image of all these spiders coming out of this woman's boil that popped, I tend to substitute those spiders for cockroaches, and that scares me even more since I'm terrified of cockroaches, and having cockroaches just bust out of you is really disturbing to me, especially if you guys remember that scene in the Creepshow movie about all these cockroaches busting out of this man's body. The image from the story, the red spot, reminded me so much of that scene in the Creepshow with the cockroaches. So the haunted house starts off with the preacher who's trying to figure out the hauntings going on in the house, and he sees this dead woman who keeps telling him that she's been murdered by somebody, and that if the preacher buries her and tries to find her murderer, then she would be rest at peace. And that's basically the gist of the story. Now, this illustration was often terrifying to me because it shows us the image of a woman who has a skeletal face with big dark holes for eyes, and it just looks so terrifying, especially seeing like a corpse that looked like that, especially after seeing the corpse look like that. And I have to say that is probably one of the most terrifying corpse I've seen being portrayed in this series so far. So that's what made this illustration so terrifying for me. So Sam's new pet is about these parents who wanted to bring their son Sam something special from Mexico. And when they go to Mexico, they find this dog that they wanted to take home to their son Sam. And it turns out that when they brought this dog home, it turns out that it wasn't really a dog after all. It was really a rat who has rabies. And that's basically what happens in the story. Now, this is one of the most disturbing images in this series because even though they said it's supposed to be a rat that has rabies, it doesn't look like a rat with rabies. It looks like a mutant who happens to look like a dog. And it's like they're purposely trying to scare the audience into thinking, hey, this is just a rat with rabies, but it doesn't look like a rat with rabies. It looks like a mutant. And that's what's so terrifying about this artwork. So the story starts off with the driver having his car broke down, and he ends up going to this house, and he decided to stay at the house for the night. But then suddenly he starts hearing this loud noise, and then he ends up seeing this terrifying looking creature, and it scared the man so badly that he ran out of the house, and he thought that he lost the creature, but then the creature comes up behind the man and asks him, is something wrong? Now this artwork is downright terrifying. Not only do we have a creature whose body is very small and very stringy, but its head is like a large skeletal head that has one bleeding eye, and that's what made this image so terrifying to look at, because for one thing, you have the bleeding eye. Like, I usually don't take well to eye screams in general, or scenes that deal with a person's eyeball being damaged in some kind of way. So this scene having a bleeding eyeball really freaked me out, but also just seeing that big skeletal head with the bleeding eyeball and the small body really freaked me out, because the creature just looks so unnatural and it looks so terrifying to look at. So A New Horse starts off with a man telling his friend that every night he gets transformed into a horse by a mysterious woman, and so the friend decided to stay with the man for the night. And then that same night, a woman comes in and turns the man into a horse and ends up riding him throughout the night. Well, then the next day, the man figures out the mysterious words that the woman chants to turn him to a horse, and he ends up turning those words back to the woman, and he ends up transforming the woman into a horse, and he gives the horse to the woman's husband. At the end of the story, the woman ends up transforming back into her human form. I actually almost consider putting this artwork as my #1 scariest illustration from the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series, because it looks so disturbing. The fact that you have a creature that has a huge horse head but it has human-like feet was really disturbing to me, to the point that I actually cover up that illustration whenever I was reading this book. So the day hand starts off with a boy named Tom who doesn't believe in the stories about a mysterious creature living in the swamp. And so one night he decides to go to the swamp just to prove to everybody that whatever creatures in the swamp does exist. But then it turns out that a dead hand ends up grabbing Tom and ends up pulling him to the swamp. And by the time Tom tries to get out of the swamp, he ends up losing his hand, and the villagers realize that it was the creature in the swamp that ends up taking away Tom's hand. I have to say that this is probably the scariest image in this entire series. Like the fact that you see a person being wrapped up in all these willow trees in there, and then have the skeletal face pop up in the middle of the willow trees, was really terrifying to look at. And then it looked like the willow trees were trying to snag around Tom or the person in that image. So it made the image look even more disturbing, just seeing this person being wrapped up in all these willow trees and having this disturbing look on his face as it's being swallowed alive by these willow trees. So that's my top 10 scariest illustrations from the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series. This is a series I love to read every year during October because it has that creepy atmosphere with all the stories. And the artwork from Stephen Gamel just brings so much creepiness to the stories. And I just enjoy reading the series every year whenever I get the chance to. Now, as of this video, there is a movie release of this series, so I haven't seen the movie yet, but I am planning to watch the movie down the line, so hopefully I have a review for the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark movie pretty soon. But tell me in the comments down below, have you read the Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark series? And if you have, did you like the series? Did you hate the series? And what were some of your scariest illustrations from this series? And what were some illustrations that I didn't mention in this video that you guys think I should have mentioned? Please feel free to comment down below. Well, hope you guys enjoyed this video. This is Rabbitearsblog, and I'll see you guys later. Hey guys, like this video? Then please feel free to hit that like button. And also, hit that subscribe button for more content about video games, movies, and TV shows from this channel. And now, let's roll the credits, please.